The last thing my daughter-in-law said before the car slowed down was that we were just taking a short drive. She said it the way people do when they want something to sound settled. I remember watching her hands on the steering wheel, steady and confident, and thinking how strange it was that everything felt so quiet after a day meant for mourning. I did not know then that this same drive would end with me standing alone on a remote road, told to step out, told that the house and the business were no longer mine. My name is Maribel Rowan. I am 68. My son's funeral ended less than an hour earlier. The chairs had already been folded. The flowers were being carried away by volunteers who did not know what else to do with their hands. People hugged me, promised to call, promised meals, promised help. I nodded and thanked them. By the time I reached the front steps of the church, most of them were already turning back to their own lives. The silence afterward was heavier than the service itself. I had buried my husband years before. I knew what grief felt like. This was different. This was sharper, quieter, and lonelier. Burying a child rearranges the world in ways no one warns you about. Everything familiar feels temporary. Even your place in your own life feels uncertain. My daughter-in-law stayed close that day. She touched my arm when people spoke to me. She answered questions before I could. She told me not to worry about details. She said she would take care of things. I mistook efficiency for kindness because I did not have the strength to separate the two. When someone asked what I wanted to do next, she smiled and said, "We'll handle it. Not we will talk, not we will decide, just we will handle it." I noticed it, but I let it pass. At home, casseroles lined the counter. Sympathy cards leaned against the fruit bowl. The house felt like it belonged to memory instead of the present. I sat at the kitchen table where my son used to drink his coffee and waited for someone to tell me what came next. I did not realize how unfamiliar that feeling was until it settled in my chest. Later that afternoon, she picked up the car keys and told me she would drive. She said there were things we needed to take care of, papers to discuss, arrangements to review. Her voice was calm, certain. I followed her out the door because following had become easier than thinking. As the car pulled away from the house, I watched it in the side mirror grow smaller, already feeling as though I was being carried somewhere without being asked. The house and the business didn't appear all at once. They came together slowly, through habits that turned into routines, and routines that turned into a life. I learned early where my help was expected and where my voice was optional. I can handle the books tonight. I used to tell my son when he came home tired, "You've already done enough." "Mom," he'd say, not looking up from his phone. "It's fine," I'd answer. Or I told myself it was. When the business was young and money was tight, I kept the accounts balanced. I paid invoices, filed forms, filled in when employees didn't show. None of it felt like sacrifice then. It felt like family. After he married, things shifted in ways that were easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. His wife brought fresh ideas and a confidence that filled the room. She spoke in plans and timelines. People listened. "We should streamline this," she said once, flipping through folders I had organized for years. "I already have a system." I replied. She smiled. "This will be more efficient." My son stood beside her, nodding. "She's got a point." "Mom, let her take the lead." I stepped back because that was what I had always done. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it kept the peace. Soon. Decisions were made without me in the room. My name disappeared from emails. Meetings happened that I wasn't told about. "I've been part of this business since the beginning," I said once. "I know," my son replied, already distracted. But things are different now. Different became normal. By the time my son got sick, my place had already shrunk. I was still there, still useful, still reliable, but I was no longer necessary. And somehow, without ever signing anything away, I had become a woman standing inside a life she helped build, with nothing in it bearing her name. The conversation happened at the kitchen table, the same place where I used to sort invoices and drink coffee with my son before work. This time, his chair stayed empty. His wife sat across from me with a folder already open, as if the meeting had started before I arrived. "We should go over a few things," she said, tapping the papers, "just to keep everything moving." I nodded, waiting for her to ask what I wanted to discuss. She didn't. "These are the updated documents," she continued. "Operating details, access, next steps." I reached for the folder, but she kept her hand on it. "It's nothing complicated," she said quickly. "Just paperwork." Paperwork for what I asked. She glanced at the page, not at me. For the business, for the house, for the transition. The word landed heavier than she intended. I wasn't aware we were transitioning. I said, she smiled, practiced and calm. "It's necessary. Things can't stay the same." I waited for my son to speak, to soften it, to explain. He didn't. He stood by the counter, scrolling on his phone, already somewhere else. "I've handled the accounts for years," I said. "If changes are being made, I should be part of them." She finally looked up. "We're not questioning your help. This is just more efficient. Efficient for who I asked. For everyone," she replied. "Especially now." My son cleared his throat. "She's right. Mom, we need to be practical." Practical. The word sounded clean enough to hide behind. "What exactly are you deciding?" I asked. She slid the folder toward me, finally letting go. "We've outlined responsibilities. Who manages what? What makes sense going forward?" I scanned the pages. Her name appeared again and again. Mine didn't. "This assumes I'm stepping back," I said. She didn't deny it. "You've been through a lot. You shouldn't have to carry this anymore." "I didn't say I wanted to stop," I replied. She closed the folder gently. "We already talked it through." "You talked it through," I said. "Without me." My son finally looked up. "It's just temporary," he said. "Let her take the lead for now." For now sounded final. No one asked if I agreed. No one waited for my answer. The authority didn't shift with an argument or a signature. It changed hands because no one thought to check if it was still mine. They called it a family discussion, but the tone was already decided before I sat down. "We've been talking," my daughter-in-law said, folding her hands together, "about what's best for you." My son nodded without looking at me. "You shouldn't be alone right now." "Mom, I'm in my own house," I said. "I've lived alone before. This is different," she replied. "You're grieving." Grieving had become a word they used like a diagnosis. "There's a place we found," she continued. "An assisted living community just outside town. Quiet. Safe. I don't need assistance." I said, "I need time." My son shifted in his chair. "It's not permanent. Just until things settle." "What things?" I asked. "The business. The house. The future," she said, answering for him. "The future was already here." I said, "We built it." She smiled. "And now it needs to change." My son finally looked at me. "We've also been approached about selling. Selling what I asked. The business. The property." He said, "It's a strong offer. I'm already taken care of." I said, "This isn't about money," she added gently. "It's about what he would have wanted." The room went quiet. "He worried about me being tired," I said, "not about being replaced." My son rubbed his face. "Mom, please don't make this harder. I'm not," I replied. "I'm asking to be included. We're trying to protect you," she said softly. "By deciding for me," I said. No one raised their voice. No one accused. They spoke carefully, reasonably, as if they were doing me a favor. And with every calm sentence, something was taken. By the time the conversation ended, nothing had been agreed to out loud, and yet everything had been decided. I was still sitting in my chair, in my house, listening to plans for a life that no longer seemed to require my presence. She took the keys before I reached for them. "I'll drive." My daughter-in-law said, "You've had a long day." My son stood by the door, already on his phone. He didn't argue. He didn't meet my eyes. "I thought we were going to the bank," I said as I settled into the passenger seat. "We are," she replied easily. "Just a few stops first." The engine started. The house disappeared behind us. I watched the porch light fade, telling myself I was tired, telling myself this was what help looked like now. She talked the way she always did when she wanted things to feel ordinary. "The lawyer needs a few signatures," she said. "Nothing binding. Just so we can keep things moving where I asked. Forward," she said. "That's all anyone wants." My son finally spoke. "This will make things easier, Mom." Easier for who stayed unspoken. We passed the turn toward town. I noticed it because I had driven that road for years. "You missed it," I said. She didn't slow down. "Traffic's bad today." "It's not," I replied. "It's early." She glanced at me, her smile still in place. "Trust me." The road narrowed. Houses thinned. My son shifted in the back seat. "We should have told you sooner," he said. "About the changes." "What changes?" I asked, though my chest had already tightened. She answered him. "We didn't want to upset her." "I'm right here," I said. She kept her eyes on the road. "And that's why we're handling this carefully." Silence filled the car. Not heavy, just complete. The kind that leaves no room to interrupt. "We just want you comfortable," my son said after a moment. "Somewhere safe. I'm safe at home." I said. She sighed, as if I had misunderstood something simple. Home is complicated now. The road curved again. Gravel replaced pavement. "I felt it through the seat." "This isn't the way to the bank," I said. She slowed for the first time. The car rolled forward, then stopped. No one spoke right away. The engine idled. My son stared straight ahead. She turned to me then, her voice calm, practiced. "This is where you get out," she said. She put the car in park. No announcement, no hesitation. Just the soft click of the gear shift settling into place. "We're here," she said. I looked out the window. There was nothing familiar. No houses, no signs. Just the road behind us and more of it ahead. "This isn't anywhere," I said. She turned toward me, her face composed. "It's far enough." My son stayed still in the back seat. His hands were folded in his lap like he was waiting for something to be handed to him. "You said we were going to the bank." I said. She nodded once. Plans changed. I waited for an explanation. It didn't come. "The house and the business are ours now," she said. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. "It's better this way." I felt the words before I understood them. Better for who I asked? She didn't answer. She reached across me and opened the passenger door. Cold air rushed in. "You have your bag," she said. "Your medications are inside." My son finally spoke. "Mom, please don't make this harder." I looked at him then, really looked. His eyes were fixed on the windshield, as if what was happening didn't require his attention. "You're leaving me here," I said. She nodded again. "You'll be fine." No apology followed. No anger, just certainty. I stepped out of the car because there was nothing else to do. The door closed behind me with a sound that felt permanent. She didn't wait for me to move away from the road. She shifted gears and drove off. I stood there holding the bag they had packed for me, watching the car shrink until it disappeared completely. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was absolute. For a moment, I felt nothing at all. No fear, no panic, just a clean, hollow space where expectation used to live. And in that space, something settled. They thought this was the end. They thought leaving me here meant I had nothing left. They were wrong. I stood where they left me, not moving at first, as if stillness might call them back. The road stayed empty. The sound of the engine was gone. Whatever they expected me to do next, they didn't wait to see it. I looked down at the bag in my hand. Inside were my pills, a sweater folded too neatly, a small envelope with a few bills. They had packed what they thought I needed, what they thought I was. I sat on the edge of the road and opened my purse. My fingers moved without shaking. Wallet, identification, a spare key I hadn't used in years. My phone, quiet but charged. I breathed in slowly, then out. "This is fine," I said aloud, just to hear my voice. It sounded steady. For a moment, fear tried to rise. The practical kind. No ride, no plan, no house waiting for me. But it didn't last. Fear needs confusion to survive, and my mind was already clearing. They believed the house defined me. They believed the business was my only value. They believed leaving me here would erase responsibility. They were wrong. I stood and brushed the dust from my coat. My body felt tired, but my thoughts were sharp. I replayed the past few days, the meetings, the documents I hadn't been allowed to touch, the decisions made in my name without my consent. I thought of my son's voice the last time we spoke privately, quieter than I remembered. I thought of what he had asked me to keep safe. I reached deeper into my bag and felt the edge of something solid. Not money, not comfort, proof. A calm settled over me, not relief. Clarity. They had left me believing I would panic, that I would beg, that I would disappear. Instead, standing there with everything they thought was enough, I felt something return to me. A sense of choice, of direction. I wasn't stranded. I was unburdened. I turned away from the road they had taken and started walking the other way, carrying exactly what I needed, leaving behind everything they had already decided didn't belong to me. We talked about it one evening when the house was quiet and the pain medication had softened his voice. "I don't want this to turn into a fight," my son said. "Not after." "It won't," I told him. "Only if you're honest with me." He nodded, staring at the ceiling. "They keep asking about the business, about selling, about timing. And what do you want?" I asked. He turned his head toward me. "I want you protected." I didn't say anything right away. I had learned that silence sometimes gave people room to say what they meant. "There's one thing," he added, "one thing we should do now." He asked me to bring the folder from the bottom drawer of the desk, the one I hadn't opened in years. Inside was a single document, thin and unremarkable, dated long before his marriage, long before the business expanded. "This stays in your name," he said. "It always has. It already is." I replied, "Keep it that way," he said. "No changes, no explanations." I looked at him. "Are you afraid they'll push?" "I know they will," he said quietly. "They think efficiency solves everything." "And you?" I asked. He smiled, tired but clear. "I think some things are worth slowing down for." There was no ceremony, no dramatic promise. He signed where he needed to, his hand steady despite the illness. I filed the document the next morning with the attorney who had handled our matters for years, a man who knew how to keep his voice low and his work precise. When I thanked him, he said, "This is straightforward. Simple protections last the longest." I didn't tell anyone else. There was nothing to tell. It wasn't a plan. It was a boundary. Standing on that road days later, I thought of that night, of how my son had trusted me to hold something quietly, without announcing it, without using it as leverage. They had ignored that document because it didn't fit their timeline. They had overlooked it because it wasn't flashy, because it didn't promise quick results. I felt its weight now, solid and reassuring, tucked where they never thought to look. They believed preparation meant control. They believed silence meant weakness. What my son understood, and what I understood now, was that the simplest safeguards are often the hardest to undo. The attorney called me the next morning. "I've reviewed the file," he said. His voice was even, careful. "There's a problem with the sale." I sat at the small table where I'd stopped to rest, my phone balanced in my hand. "What kind of problem? A fundamental one," he replied. "They don't have authority to transfer what they've promised." I didn't say anything. I let him continue. "I've notified the buyer," he said. "They've suspended negotiations." "How long?" I asked. "As long as it takes," he said. "They don't like uncertainty." By noon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from my daughter-in-law. Short, urgent. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another message came through. "There's been a misunderstanding." The word felt familiar. It was the same one she used when decisions were made without me. The attorney called again that afternoon. "They reached out," he said. "They want to clarify what I asked. That you're still involved," he said. "That you need to consent." "I haven't consented to anything," I replied. "I know," he said. "That's the point." Silence followed. The good kind. The kind that means work is being done without noise. That evening, my son called. His voice was tight, strained. "Mom," he said, "this has gone too far. I didn't start anything." I said, "You're blocking the sale." He said, "I'm not blocking it," I replied. "I'm standing where I've always stood." He exhaled sharply. "She's panicking." I imagined her now, flipping through papers, searching for a fix that didn't exist. She should read more carefully, I said. No one raised their voice. No threats were made. Nothing dramatic happened. The sale didn't collapse with an argument or a confrontation. It stalled because it had nowhere left to go. Power didn't arrive loudly. It didn't announce itself. It simply did what it was meant to do. Once it was finally seen, I didn't go back to the house. I told the attorney, "Handle the rest." He nodded, as if he understood that some doors don't need closing ceremonies. I moved into a smaller place near the library. The first night, the phone rang. "We should talk," my daughter-in-law said. Her voice was controlled again. "Careful. I've said what I needed to say," I replied. "This doesn't have to be permanent." She added, "It already is," I said, and ended the call. My son called once more, weeks later. I didn't think it would happen like this. He said, "It didn't have to." I answered, "But it did." We spoke politely, briefly. I kept the boundary where it belonged. My days found a new rhythm: morning coffee, short walks, volunteering 2 afternoons a week. I stopped explaining myself to people who weren't listening. Grief stayed with me. Quiet but present. It no longer decided my worth. I learned something through all of this. And it wasn't about documents or authority. It was about dignity, about knowing when silence is strength and when it's surrender. Love doesn't require erasing yourself. And peace doesn't come from winning, it comes from choosing what you refuse to lose. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like it, subscribe, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever had to reclaim your place quietly, leave a comment below. Your story matters too.